We're going to be turning to Isaiah chapter 49. We're going to be reading verse 1 and verse 2. And then we're going to jump to another portion of Scripture in just a minute. But our subject today, is, I am an arrow. Amen? All right, Isaiah chapter 49, verse 1 and 2. This is Isaiah the prophet speaking, and he says, "Listen to me, you islands, and hear this, you distant nations. Before I was born, the Lord called me. From my birth, He has made me mention of my name. He has made my mouth like a sharpened sword, and in the shadow of His hand He has hid me. He has made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in His quiver." Amen. Look at somebody and say, "I'm sharp and I'm deadly."
I'm sharp and I'm deadly. Look out.
Amen. I am an arrow. I'm sharp and I'm deadly. I'm in His quiver, and I always hit the mark. So, in business, there is such a thing that is called barriers to entry. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase used or not. But I have made it a kind of a lifelong passion to study business and business management. I've been fortunate enough over the years to have started a few companies. I think when I counted the other day, Deborah and I, we've started 7 different businesses. Some have been successful, some have been mediocre, and there are a couple of there that I wish I had never gotten involved in. But we've started them nonetheless. And in that, we've always come across barriers to entry. Now, barrier to entry can be a number of things. It could be market saturation. If you are coming in with a new product, and there have been those that have been in the marketplace with a similar product for years and years, and they've got a major share of the shelf at the store, and you're launching a new product, you're fighting for shelf space. So there's that market saturation that you have to battle. There's being capitalized. Many startups, they may think they have the funding that they need, but shortly after launching, they realize that the funding isn't all quite there. It's not adequate. So you can be undercapitalized. You can be a little too young. You can be a little too old. You can be young enough that you don't have all the experience you need, and yet at the same time you can be old enough that you maybe have too much experience and you don't see the forest for the trees. You're overqualified. You can get into business and find out there's no distribution network. You've got to develop a distribution network. You can find out that there is absolutely no marketing that you have at your access to. There's always barriers to entry. In fact, that's the reason that many people, though they have great ideas in business, and they maybe have a product that if they were to launch, they would be highly successful. But that is the main reason that most people never try, because of barriers to entry. As they begin to weigh out all of the barriers, they realize that I'm not willing to fight this fight. I'm not willing to go there. I'm not willing to do what it takes to make it happen. I'm just not even going to try. I'm going to wish it could have, should have, and I'm going to do nothing because of barriers to entry. There is always barriers to entry. There's barriers to entry both in the natural and in the business world. There's barriers to entry. And there is barriers to entry in the spiritual. You cannot fight the spiritual and worry about barriers to entry at the same time. Because if you look at all of the barriers, you will never get out and fight.
Right.
You'll be a Sunday morning Christian at best. You'll live in defeat Monday through Saturday. We come to church on Sunday and we get our hoop and our holler on, and we think we're all of that until we go out the door and we realize barriers to entry have taken over our life and we can do absolutely nothing. I want to look at a young man. His name is Jonathan. He is the prince of Israel. He is the son of Saul, and we find him in 1 Samuel chapter 13, verse 16.
Saul and his son Jonathan and the men with them were staying in Gibeah in Benjamin, while the Philistines camped at Michmash. Raiding parties went out from the Philistine camp in 3 detachments. One turned toward Ophrah in the vicinity of Shual, another toward Beth-oron, and the third toward the borderland overlooking the valley of Zeboim, facing the wilderness. Not a blacksmith could be found in the whole land of Israel, because the Philistines had said, "Otherwise the Hebrews will make swords or spears." So all Israel went down to the Philistines to have their plowpoints, mattocks, axes, and sickles sharpened. The price was 2/3 of a shekel for sharpening plowpoints and mattocks, and 1/3 of a shekel for sharpening forks and axes, and for repointing goads. So on the day of the battle, not a soldier with Saul and Jonathan had a sword or spear in his hand. Only Saul and his son Jonathan had them.
So in this text, we're getting a picture of this young man, Jonathan, and the situation and the barriers to entry that he is facing. Now the writer here in 1 Samuel is making it really clear that the children of Israel, they had no weapons. They're getting ready to go to war against the Philistines, and the Philistines have all the weapons. Now, it's interesting that though the Israelites had no weapons, they had iron, because the region was known for producing iron. So the children of Israel, they had iron, but they had no weapons. They had to go to the Philistines in order to have the Philistines sharpen their farming equipment. And the Philistines, who had access to the same raw material, iron, they were skilled in making weapons. So here you have the children of Israel with all the raw material needed, but they don't have the skill to make a weapon. All they have is raw material. And then you have the children of Israel and the the Philistines, and the Philistines have the raw material, and they have the skill to make weapons. Everybody say, "I'm an arrow."
I'm an arrow.
I'm an arrow. You have the raw material. Now, you might not be a weapon yet. You might not be sharpened. You might not be a weapon, but you have the raw materials that are needed. And God is trying to sharpen us into weapons so that we can fight. Now it's interesting because the Philistines, though they were masters at working with iron, they would only sharpen the farming equipment of the children of Israel. They would not sharpen a weapon. They would not allow them to have a weapon. In fact, the text tells us that there are only 2 swords, one that King Saul has and one that Jonathan has. There is only 2 swords found in Israel, and yet they're getting ready to go to battle with the Philistine nation, who all have weapons. They all have swords and spears and arrows, and they all have weapons for fighting. You see, there's a spiritual principle embedded in this text. And that is this. You see, the devil doesn't care if you have the raw material. He just never wants it to become a weapon.
Right.
All right, let me break it down this way. The devil doesn't care if you come to church and you hear about all of the resources, as long as those resources never become a weapon. Okay, the devil doesn't care if you come to church and you hear that you are the head and not the tail.
Come on.
As long as when you walk out the door, you stay the tail and you never become the head. Oh, I feel like preaching. The devil doesn't care if you come and hear about worship. In fact, the devil doesn't care if you worship. How many of you know that your worship is not dangerous in the house But He does care if you take your worship outside of here and it becomes a weapon.
Come on now. Preach.
He does care if you worship on the job. He does care if you worship in the store. He does care if you're singing a song in your car. He does care if you're worshiping outside of these four walls, because your weapon, your worship then becomes a weapon, and it is penetrating darkness. He doesn't care if you hear the word this morning. As long as when you leave, this word never becomes a sword and becomes a weapon. He doesn't care if you read the Bible, as long as you never use it as a sword and it becomes a weapon. He doesn't care if you farm. Just don't fight. A lot of Christians are farmers, but very few Christians are fighters. You see, we come to church today, we come to church to have our weapons sharpened. We come to church to have maybe some new weapons forged. I've got a sword, but I'd like a little dagger to go with it, or I'd like an axe to go with it. So I'm forging a new weapon while I'm sharpening my old weapons, so that when I leave here, I can fight effectively. But how many of you know that when you get sharpened, sometimes it takes a little fire? Sometimes it takes a hammer. Sometimes it takes an anvil. Sometimes it takes a little pounding and a little hurt. But when you go through it, you should be sharper than before you faced it. That's why the Bible says all things work together for good to those that love Christ and are called according to His purpose. Why? Because whatever you go through is sharpening you to be more effective weapon, a warrior, a fighter, to do more damage. Everything you and I face and go through, all of the pounding and the heat and that anvil and all of that, it's designed to make us a more effective fighter.
Right.
Let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 14. I'm going to give you 4 points. My second point is this: to fight or not.
One day Jonathan, son of Saul, said to his young armor-bearer, "Come, let's go over to the Philistine outpost on the other side." But he did not tell his father. Saul was staying on the outskirts of Gibeah under a pomegranate tree in Migron. With him were about 600 men, among whom was Ahijah, who was wearing an ephod. He was a son of Ichabod's brother Ahitub, son of Phinehas, the son of Eli, the Lord's priest in Shiloh. No one was aware that Jonathan had left.
So in the text, the writer here has taken us a little deeper in the story. And here you find Jonathan's father, the king of Israel, Saul. He is sitting under a pomegranate tree, which speaks of ease. It speaks of, there's some allegories there about pomegranates. It speaks of richness. It speaks of royalty. He's sitting under the pomegranate tree, and he's sitting with all of the people that would hear from God. He's sitting with the priests. He's got his warriors there. He's got even an ephod there. The ephod is what the priest wore to hear from God. Because in the ephod there was a pocket inside, and in the pocket there was a stone called the Urim and Thummim. And then when they would hear from God, they would pull the stone out, and if it was white, it meant yes, and if it was black, it meant no. And that's how the high priest would hear from God. So Saul is under a pomegranate tree. He's not out fighting. He's not getting ready to fight. He's under the pomegranate tree, and he's waiting, and he's waiting, and he's waiting to hear from God. He's got the priest with him. He's got the ephod with him. He's got his soldiers with him. He's got other royalty. And they're sitting and they're waiting to hear from God. They're waiting for God to speak. He's in a safe place. And he's waiting for God to say something. It's interesting because that's like a lot of Christians. We spend all of our time, we spend all praying, God, lead me, God, lead me, God, show me, God, speak to me. God, what do you want me to do? And I believe God is shouting back, I don't know. What do you want to do? Don't ask God to lead where He's already speaking. It's interesting because in verse 1, Jonathan, listen carefully. One day, Jonathan said to his armor bearer, let's go. Come on, let's go do something. Let's go and fight. That's all God was waiting for. God wasn't going to speak to Saul and his group of men sitting there waiting. He was waiting for one man to say, come on, let's go. I'm going to believe God. I'm going to trust God. God said the victory is ours. I'm not waiting for him to speak. He's already spoke. Let's go do something and fight. Too many Christians sit around waiting for God to say and tell them what to do when He's already said, go win the world, they're lost. Go spread the gospel. You don't need for me to say, come on, let's go. I've already given you direction. Go do it.
Amen. Amen.
You see, Jonathan didn't wait to be affirmed by Saul. Jonathan wasn't waiting for the pastor to say, okay. Jonathan saw a need and he said, I'm going to go take care of it. Jonathan wasn't waiting for his posse or his crew to gather. Jonathan wasn't waiting for a team of people. Too many times we wait for support that never comes, that never happens before we go and do anything. Jonathan said, just give me one person, somebody to watch my back. So while I'm fighting this way, they're watching so nobody comes up behind me. I don't need a crew. I don't need a posse. I don't need a team of people. I don't need a bunch of yes folk. I don't need the pastor to recognize me. I don't need the church to say I'm cool and I'm good. And look what just give me one person to fight with me. One individual with some guts. Somebody that can pick up a rock and throw it at somebody. Give me one and I'm going. Jonathan said to his armor bearer, who wasn't a trained fighter, he just carried the equipment. But there's no equipment to carry. There's only one sword. They don't have equipment. And he said, are you in? Will you go with me? And the armor bearer said, let's go. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I'll fight. I'll do what it takes. I'm with you. Let's go. We sit and wait for support that never comes, that never happens.
That's right. Good word.
When God said, you don't need support, you have me. I am your support. I have your behind. I have your front. I have you. Let's go do it. Take that weapon. Take that praise, take that word, take that weapon and go out and fight. See, God's sharpening some swords right now. God's forging some new weapons right now. You see, some of you, you're going to go to your probation officer next week and they're going to say, how's it going? How are things going? I know you're over there at City Church. How are things going? And you're going to say, instead of saying, I don't know. You now have a sword. You have some kind of sharp. You're able to say, you know what, probation officer, I've been over there at that crazy church. Them folks are nuts over there. But I've got my edge back. I've got some weapons back. I'm ready to face some life. And you know what? It's going really good. I've come in contact with this man, Jesus Christ. And He's changed my life. He's begun to do some stuff in me. It's not all done, but I'm better than I was last week. And I'm better than I was last month. Every week I keep getting better. So, probation officer, that's what's happening in my life. And you've just become a witness. And you pierce darkness in the probation. You've used your praise. You've used your testimony. That's what God wants from us. Soldiers to go out and do some fighting in the midst of some darkness. 1 Samuel chapter 14 and verse 4 through verse 12. Is it an invite or is it a threat?
On each side of the pass that Jonathan intended to cross to reach the Philistine outpost was a cliff. One was called Bozez, and the other Sinai. One cliff stood to the north toward Michmash, the other to the south toward Geba. Jonathan said to his young armor-bearer, "Come, let's go over to the outpost of those uncircumcised men. Perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few." "Do all that you have in mind," his armor-bearer said. "Go ahead. I am with you heart and soul." Jonathan said, "Come on then. We will cross over toward them and let them see us. If they say to us, 'Wait there until we come to you,' we will stay where we are and not go up to them. But if they say, 'Come up to us,' we will climb up, because that will be our sign that the Lord has given them into our hands." So both of them showed themselves to the Philistine outpost. "Look," said the Philistines, "the Hebrews are crawling out of the holes they were hiding in." The men of the outpost shouted to Jonathan and his armor-bearer, "Come up to us, and we will teach you a lesson." So Jonathan said to his armor-bearer, "Climb up after me. The Lord has given them into the hand of Israel."
So in that text, Jonathan says to his armor-bearer, he said, "Come on, let's go approach the Philistines who are up on this ridge. Let's go approach them, and if they say, 'Come up and fight with us up here,' we will take that as a sign from the Lord that He has given us victory. But if they don't invite us up, well, we'll have to regroup and reconsider." And the armor-bearer said, "Yeah, I'm with you. Let's go do this. Let's make it happen." And when they get to the Philistines, and the Philistines look down and they see Jonathan and the armor-bearer, the Philistines said, "Look, these Hebrews are coming out from the rocks and the holes where they've been hiding." And they say to them, "Come on up and we'll teach you a lesson." They meant it as a threat, but Jonathan saw it as an invite. You see, fighters always look for the invite to a fight. Fighters always see the invite in the negativity. Fighters always see the invite in the opposition. Fighters always see opportunity where there is no opportunity. And it's the waiters that always see the threat. When the children of Israel were going to go into the promised land, out of the 12 spies, only 2 were fighters, and the other 10 were waiters. And they ended up waiting in the wilderness their entire life because they wanted to wait. If you want to wait, God will always give you what you desire. But if you want to be a Joshua, and you want to be a Caleb, and you want to fight, even though you have to wait out the waiters, God will still give you your mountain, and He will still give you your territory, and He will still give you your land, because He sees the fighting spirit within you, the heart of a warrior. I am an arrow. You see, waiters say things like, "Oh, well, Pastor, I wanted to go to college, but I didn't have my GED. Well, Pastor, I was going to start that ministry. I thought I had help to start that ministry, but that lady, she backed out on me at the last minute, so I've done nothing. Well, Pastor, I thought I was going to start a business. I thought I was going to go into business, but I just couldn't find the money source. Oh, man. When we started Better Building Development, which is we did high density work. Anyway, when we started that, I had been out of the development game for about 10 years. And I felt in my heart that God was going to open some doors, and some real estate people, we did a market search, and anyway, I found some property in the Central Valley area. And I remember I found this sleeper lot, and I said, we're going to start with this, and then we're going to graduate up to bigger stuff, but we got to start someplace. And I took my portfolio of properties that we had built over the years gone by, and I said, now I've got to find a bank, because the bank I used to use got sold and bought by another bank. It was a private bank, and I knew the owner, the person that started it, and a very old man, but he liked me, and I knew the president, and I knew the vice president over construction lending. And I could walk in and get a loan just on my word and do the paperwork later, Scott. You're good. We'll follow you wherever you want to build. But they were no longer in existence. They were gone. I had a barrier to entry. No money. So I put my suit on and I decided, well, if we're going to build in the Central Valley area, I better go find a bank in the Central Valley area. So I went to the first bank and they said, son, you don't know the market out here. You've been out of the game way too long. You're not getting a dime from us. So not to be discouraged, I went to the second bank. And the second bank said the same thing. Son, you've been out of it too long. You haven't built in 10 years. You don't even know what the market's like anymore. No, we're not going to give you a dime. And I went to the third bank. And I went to the fourth bank. And I went to the fifth bank. County bank. And I walked in and I introduced myself to the vice president of construction lending. His name was Brad Pitts, of all names. He looked nothing like Brad Pitt, trust me. Middle-aged, bald guy. Anyway, he said, so tell me, where have you built? And I showed him my portfolio, and he's looking through it. He's going, he said, wait a minute, you built in the Del Rio Country Club at Modesto? And I said, one home. He said, I'm a member of that country club. Let's you and me go have lunch, and I want you to show me the house. So we went to the Del Rio Country Club, and we're eating lunch, and I'm sweating bullets, because I don't remember where the house was at. It's been 10 years, and I never came into that country club from the way we came in, from the back end. I always came in from Highway 99 off the front end, one way in, one way out. I never saw the country club because I never cared about it. And now I got to go find a house that I only knew how to get to by this street, that, and he's got me on the other side. And I'm sweating, and I'm going, God, he's going to think I'm a liar for sure. I took these pictures, they're not mine. And he's looking at me like, I probably caught you in a lie, didn't I? Finish your sandwich, let's go see. So we get in the car. And I'm freaked out of my mind, and I'm praying, God, show me where to go, show me where to go, show me where to go. And we're driving, he goes, well, and I feel God speak to me and say, turn right here. I go, turn right there. And we turn right, I'm going, God, speak again. He looks at me, he goes, well, I don't know. God speak, turn left there. We turn left there. And we do this about 4 or 5 times, and we end up right in front of that house. Trees now matured, bushes have grown, and he looks at the picture. He said, son, you are right. He said, all right, we'll give you one loan, because you don't know anything about the market here. I said, let me tell you something. You don't see the trees for the forest. I'm telling you, I'll sell that thing before it's done being built, and I'll sell it for full market price, and I'll put the contract on your desk. We sold it out of framing stage. $1,000 below our asking price, and I walked in and put the contract on his desk. And he said, we'll go anywhere you want. You've got access to this bank. You build as much. We built more than they could lend us, and he had to turn us on to another lender, and we built more than they could almost lend us. They had to say, whoa, wait a minute. You're going too fast. You're growing too big for us. We can't keep up. Barrier to entry. It took 5 banks and 4 no's to get the one. This church would not be here today if it weren't for some fighters. When they said it couldn't be done. When they said you won't. When they said you'll never. When they said you won't stay standing. We're still here.
Ooh, yes.
Because of some fighters here that said, Pastor, we'll fight with you. We don't just come to church on Sunday, but we're going to fight come Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday. And we'll come back Sunday again and get our swords sharpened because we're fighting to stay alive. Fourth point, I'm going to leave you with this. Fighters always find a way. Now in this text, the writer here points out the obstacles. He says that the Philistines are up on a cliff, up on a hill, and Jonathan and his armor bearer are in a valley. And the writer tells us what was on the left and the right side of them. Now, to most of us, these are just names, but you have to understand, the writer is giving us the name for a reason. He wants us to see the opposition. And the writer says here, he says on the one side, there was the rocks that they called Bozez. And I looked that up and I realized that it was named Bozez because it was shiny and it was slippery. So on the one hand, they think, how am I going to get up there? The rock's shiny and it's slippery. I can't really climb it. And then the writer tells us what was on the other side. And the other side was rock called Sinai. And that is defined sharp, thorny, and jagged. Then the writer goes on to tell us how he climbed up. He didn't just walk up. He didn't take an escalator to the top. He didn't get in an elevator and press top floor. The writer said he climbed up on his hands and his knees. Now, I don't believe he went up the Bozez side. It was too slippery. I believe he climbed up the jagged, rocky, thorny side on his hands and his knees. I believe that when he got up there, he was a little bit bloody. I believe his knees were a little bleeding. I believe his hands were a little bleeding. I believe his armor bearer was a little bit bloody. But he's ready to fight. He's ready to get down and fight. He's an arrow, ready to be shot at the target, knowing he'll hit the target. He's ready to fight. His armor bearer is ready to fight. Most people don't fight because they want to stay pretty.
Oh, my. Say it again.
They want to stay pretty. You can't fight and not break a nail.
Uh-oh. Come on.
You can't fight and not get your white tinnies a little bit dirty. They ain't going to be so white anymore.
Tell somebody.
You can't fight without some of your weed coming out. You better tie it behind and tuck it down your blouse if you're going to fight. You're going to lose part of it, and I know you paid a lot of money to get it. But you can't fight and stay pretty.
Come on. That's right.
And between them, they only have one sword. And they're fighting this small group of Philistines who all have swords. And they only have one sword. And I believe Jonathan's saying, I don't have a shield, all I got is a sword. And the armor bearer saying, well, lucky you, at least you got a sword. Oh, I got some rocks. I better find a rock if I'm going to fight. And the armor bearer searching for rocks. I got to have a rock I can throw at these guys. But I'm going to find something to fight because I climbed up here. And I got a little bit bloody and I got a little bit dirty. I didn't come up here for nothing. I didn't come up here to shake your hand. I came up here to throw down and to do some fighting. And I'm going to fight. Sometimes when you fight, you get a little bit dirty. Sometimes it gets a little bit messy. Sometimes things get said. Sometimes there's a hurt feeling here and there. Sometimes when you're going to fight the enemy, you got to be ready to get messed up a little bit. And it's okay. Pick up a rock. You'll still win. Don't worry about his sword. You pick up whatever. You see, fighters always pick up what's available. Not what I might get. Not what you promised me I'll get. Not what you're going to send me. Not what I'm sorry. Can I kind of go against some folks' theology? Not what I'm going to pray for and wait for. Oh, I ain't waiting. I'm picking something up. I'm coming at you.
Come on.
I'm praying for a sword. It might not come. You might get away before I get my sword. I'm coming at you with a rock. I don't wait for anybody. It's interesting. I heard a story a while back. I heard a story. Bless her heart. Gal went to a rough school, man. But she got jumped and beat up by some girls in the bathroom. And she was afraid it was going to happen again. So she got home. And she realized that she had no older brothers that could teach her to fight. She didn't have no weapon, no knives. And she realized, she said, well, I went to her dresser drawer. She said, well, I got a sock. I got a big sock. And then she went out in the garage and she found her daddy's flashlight. She emptied his flashlight. She said, I've got a sock and I've got some ever-ready batteries. I may not have what the Philistine has. I may not have a sword, but I've got something for you. A sock and some batteries. Ever-ready batteries. Yeah. And they're ready to do everything on you right now. So you come up and get it. Because I got a sock and I got some batteries. I'll fight with what I got because I am an arrow. I'm dangerous. I'm powerful. And God will use me to defeat the enemy. I ain't waiting for what I might get. I ain't waiting for what you think I should have. I ain't waiting for somebody to show up and help me. No. I got a sock and I got some ever-ready batteries. And I'm ready to fight right now. Some of us, it's time we tell the devil, enough is enough. I'm done with you messing up my life. I'm done with you thinking you have control over my life. I'm done with your playing in my playground. I've got a sock and I've got some batteries and I'm coming after you, so get ready to fight. And if I get dirty in the process, then so be it. I'll break a nail. I'll mess my hair up. I'll get my white Nikes dirty. It's all good because when all is said and done, I've won.
Yes.
You need to check your drawer. You might have a white sock in there. In the garage, you might find some ever-ready batteries. You have the iron. God has given you the iron. Use it. And as you use it, He'll sharpen it up a little bit here and there. As you use it, He'll forge new instruments of war for you. But it all starts with using what you've got.
Amen.
God never supplies if you're not using what you got. What do you have right now? What do you have to use right now? Well, Pastor, I don't know the Bible real well. I don't know the Bible like Reggie over there knows the Bible. I don't know where all the good verses are. I just know one verse. We'll take the one verse and go out and do some warfare with the one verse. God will give you some other verses. But you got to start someplace. You got to use the one verse.
Yes, you do.
Pastor, I don't know how to pray. I can't get up and pray like Dr. John can and be all eloquent in my prayer. I can't even pronounce some of the words right. I mean, I don't know what sanctified is. I don't know what redeemed is and redemption. Those are all spiritual words. I don't know that stuff. All I know is the Lord's Prayer. Pray.
That's right. Amen.
Start fighting the enemy. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Yes.
Your kingdom is here.
Yes.
Let your will be done as it is in heaven, so be it on earth. And make me an instrument of war to bring it about. Because I believe God's kingdom is here right now and it's in movement and it's working. And I'm there to present it. And I'm there to move it forward. Well, I only know one prayer, but it's pretty powerful.
Yes, it is.
It's a sock
Amen.
and it's some battle.
Yes. Yes.
You come with your one prayer, it's okay. All you need is one sock and 2 batteries. You can kill somebody.
Amen.
Well, I don't know how to testify it. I don't know how to share with people the gospel. It's probably better you don't. You just mess them up when you think you know how to share it. You just tell them what Jesus has done for you and keep it simple and sweet. Well, I can't tell you how to do this and how to do that, but can I tell you what Jesus has done for me? Well, I was using drugs 3 weeks ago, but I haven't touched them since.
Amen.
I have a month of sobriety. I have a year of sobriety because of Him. Can I tell you what Jesus has done for me? I might not be able to tell you all the Bible stories, but I can tell you what He's done for me.
Yes.
That's a sword.
That's a sword.
That's a saw.
Yes.
That's some batteries. You need to go out and tell your friends and tell your family and do some warfare with the enemy.
Yes.
He's messing their lives up too. You have the power to stop it.
Come on now.
Did you know that? You look at your family and they're all jacked up. You have the power. You have the word to go stop it.
Jesus.
Don't run from them. Run to them. Straighten them out. Hit the devil with your sock in some batteries. Can I tell you nobody messed with that girl again? She didn't know how to fight. She could swing a sock. And some batteries. Nobody taught her jujitsu and karate and how to box. She just could swing a mean sock and 2 batteries. Amen. Look at your life. Where does the devil have you defeated? Where does the devil have you running? Where does the devil have you all messed up? See, each of us is different. We face different things. But my sock and my batteries will work for me, and it'll work for you too. You just got to decide what you have at your hand, what God has given you. And you need to begin to use it against the devil and tell him, no more, we're done. It stops here. The line is here. I ain't running from you no more. You better be careful because I'm running to you. How many of you know that when the Philistine Goliath challenged David, remember the story? He started making fun of David. Huge, giant. What does the Bible say? David didn't wait around. David had a sling and 5 rocks. The Bible said he didn't sit and even banter with Goliath. He said, dude, you're going to die today. I'm going to cut your head off. Here I come. And he went running to Goliath. He didn't walk. He didn't jog. He went running. A man fully armored with an armor bearer beside him, body covered in armor, head covered in armor. There was one spot open that was vulnerable. He had helmets, face gear, one spot. David had 1 sling and 5 rocks. He said, I see one opportunity to kill you, and that's all it takes. 1 stone, 1 opportunity to kill you, and you're going to go down. The strategy is simple. 1 rock, 1 sling, 1 open spot, and I'm going to get close enough to you to hit it. God will show you the 1 opportunity, and God will put the rock in your hand to kill your enemy. But you've got to be willing to take that sling and to throw it, believing that He's got your back. How many of you want to do some fighting?
All right.
How many of you would say, I have an arrow? I'm an arrow. I'm straight. I'm shiny. I've got a mean point on me. And when I see the target, I do not miss. I'm an arrow. Do not mess with me.